It's time for Aggrochat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Aggronaut blog and Stalwart Gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belghast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, I sometimes get a dumb idea stuck in my head, and this particular dumb idea relates to the fact that the first 73 episodes of Aggrochat never made their way to YouTube because I didn't really have a way of doing that back then. So the idea is that I edit back all of these first episodes, move them into kind of a modern structure, and upload them to YouTube. One of the problems with these early episodes is they're not very good. We didn't know what we were doing. We had no structure. But nonetheless, it bugs me that there's this gap in our history that doesn't exist on YouTube. So here goes nothing. This first episode features the original cast, which was myself, Ashgar, Ray, and Kodra. And we have no structure. So good luck with that. Okay, hey folks. This is the inaugural episode of Aggrochat, and I'm Belghast, the author of Tales of the Aggronaut and guild leader of House Stalwart. And I'm joined tonight by several of my friends that are hopefully going to be the regular co-hosts each week. We have Ray. Ray, if you want to say a few words about yourself.
Howdy, howdy. I am 20-something programmer. I've been in video games for a couple of years now. I'm not quite the veteran that everybody else is, but I'm trying to make up for lost ground.
I think he qualifies as a veteran at this point. We also have Ashgar. Ash, if you want to say a few words about yourself.
Hi, I'm Ashgar. I am yet another programmer, and I'm not quite the veteran that Bell is, but he seems to think I know things, so here I am.
I don't think there's anything that Ash doesn't know, but that's a whole
plenty
other
of things
story.
I don't know.
The funny thing is, I just realized, as we're doing these introductions, that each and every one of us is a programmer.
You have 4 programmers.
Ashgar doesn't know Pokemon he doesn't like.
And the other member of the team is Kodra. If you want to say a few words, Kodra.
Hi, I'm Kodra. I'm yet another programmer, and I'm a decently veteran MMO player. I met Bell in the first raid guild we were in WoW.
Yeah, and that's been down memory lane here a lot lately because one of the games we've been playing is involving a lot of people from that same old raid guild. Speaking of which, what's everybody even playing? I guess we'll start with Ray.
Well, with the ESO launch, I've been investing quite a bit of time with that, but Landmark also has been feeding my creative appetite. I think I got on the other night to pay my claim upkeep at about 7 o'clock, and then when I checked the time again, it was 1 a.m. Oops.
Yeah, Landmark can kind of eat your time, because I've wasted hours in the game. I know for the most part, all of us are playing ESO. Has anybody been playing anything different than ESO other than Landmark?
I've got some board games, card games I've been playing, but other video games, just ESO.
Well, I know you had the Ponies tournament the other day, didn't you?
Yeah.
So what is the Ponies card game like? I mean...
So the My Little Pony card game is about sort of territory control. There are going to be 2 problems on the board, and you're both trying to solve those problems, and you get points from solving those problems. And when both sides of the problem are solving it, they have a face-off to see who did a better job at solving the problem.
Okay, so I've played card games where there was a quest in the middle or something like that, and the person who completed the quest first got the credit for the quest. So that's kind of cool.
Yep, yeah, very similar to that type of a idea.
I was wondering how that game worked because I've only played a couple of card games, but when you introduced the My Little Pony genre, that's really fascinating, though.
It's cool because Rage kind of had that mechanic late in its life where there would be things that got played in the battleground area in the center, and then people could either fight their own thing that they laid down, or you could trip it up somebody else and lay one down that was insanely hard, and there were cards that would force them to fight it. But that's kind of a cool mechanic. I like the way that works.
It works very well for the theming because it sort of acts like each problem is sort of an episode, and you're trying to see how you solve this problem, sort of like you would do in an episode of My Little Ponies. It's also works very well at like there are also troublemakers, which enable like some blocking of problems. You have to deal with the troublemaker before you can solve the problem, which is a lot of fun.
That's
Cool.
great.
Okay, so I almost skipped Ash. Ash, you been playing anything other than ESO?
A little bit. I got the newest version of Blaze Blue, and the story remains as crazy as ever. I've been playing a little bit of that.
I don't know if I could like actually expand on what the story in that game is, other than just a bunch of crazy fighting. But
There's a bunch of crazy fighting and time loops.
yeah, I like Blaze Blue, but then again, I was a fan of Guilty Gear, and it's really similar to me, or at least feels really similar to me.
I did not really get into Guilty Gear. Got into the first Blaze Blue, though, and enjoyed that.
Yeah, like,
Probably take interest in the new Guilty Gear when it comes out.
I think the first one, the Guilty Gear I played, was the one for the PlayStation 1. Was there one on the Super Nintendo, or am I misremembering?
I don't think it goes back that far.
Okay. I just remember it was like Marvel versus Capcom to an extreme. Like, it was super fast and frenetic. There were a lot of really cool melee but melee characters that, look, everything's going to be a champion from this point out.
We're sorry, Riot.
I know. Like, okay, so I've been playing Heroes of the Storm, and I know Ash has a little bit, and they want us to call those things heroes, but from this point on, they will always be champions.
Which is funny, because they were heroes in Dota.
Yeah, they were heroes in Dota, but now they're champions. And I really don't have much experience with Dota 2. Like, pretty much I played a little bit of Dota, but never really got into it back in the day. So MOBAs really started for me with League, and you guys get me into that.
League.
I really am interested in Heroes of the Storm, though, and I hope that it opens up a little bit more in the near future.
I keep hoping that they're going to give us buddy keys so that we can gradually expand out a person at a time, because in that way we could get like all of us in and play. Because that's what's keeping me from playing it much right now, is the fact that...
What do you play with?
Well, like, unless Ash and I get on at exactly the same time, the only other person that... Well, there are two people I have on my friends list in there. One is the person that got me in, who's not playing it very much. And the other person is a British YouTube / live streaming person, and the time frame is always messed up. So we're never on at the same time. So
Because oceans.
yeah, because time zones.
Time zones are hard.
Time zones are very hard.
Well, yeah, and you can kind of have a little bit of overlap with your Euro friends on the weekends, but it's not much. But really, I don't know. Like, I'm looking forward to playing some of the new champions that they announced at PAX. Like, I know it's stupid, but I really want to play Murky because
It sounds like a fun way to play it. By the way, on that comment of time zones, I just want to say, in hindsight, it really is impressive how long we kept a Australian contingent in our raid in WoW.
I know, like that. They didn't sleep. That's all I can think of. Is
that what happened?
I think because how many did we have? We had probably 20 or so at one time.
Yeah,
that were Australian, and just in hanging out with Bonsai,
You were raiding late nights Eastern time, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
We were kind of...
That was the middle of the day.
Yeah, there's that. Well, and we also had an Australian rogue for the longest time in post LNR Stalwart that would raid with us, and it was like during the morning hours for him. But still, it's just, I don't know. I don't understand how our server ended up being almost the unofficial Australian server. For those of not familiar, we all played on, well, except for Ash, played on Argent Dawn in World of Warcraft, and that's what we're talking about, is the large saturation that we had of Australians, and just the fact that they were playing with constant 600 millisecond ping was impressive.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much back then, that's what they played with all the time. That was as low a ping as they could get. I just can't even imagine playing a game with that bad a connection. But it's funny the way that all of us have kind of stayed in contact all these years after that raid broke up.
Yeah.
I blame your fan.
My fan? It's not me, man. It was
It is
Shiana was the
entirely
leader.
It's you.
Well, it was like I think it was Bellany that called me the prom queen just because everybody knew me.
That's great.
So I don't know. I think the one of the more interesting tidbits of news that has come out pre-PAX was the whole H1Z1 thing.
It's a zombie MMO.
I don't know what to think about that. Like, I don't know why they're going in that direction.
Because DayZ was popular?
Yeah, but it feels like that's a super saturated space right now. So you've got DayZ.
It is a little saturated, but...
You've got Rust, which is really similar, but kind of went in his own little direction. There's 7 Days to Die, I think, which is a voxel-based version of all this. Did World War Z ever get rebooted?
It did, as Infestation Survivor Stories. By all accounts, it is still terrible.
Oh, well.
Aw.
But it just feels like there's a lot in that space right now, and I don't know how they're going to do well in it, or more so, I don't know how they're going to differentiate themselves. I mean,
think they're confident that with Sony's, marketing machine and their studio pedigree, that they can manage to stick out from the crowd. I don't know how this comes through in the game proper, but...
Well, I mean,
We'll
I'm just
see.
wondering, is it going to feel like PlanetSide with zombies, or... And then, in addition, they've also got Fortnite coming out by Epic, and that looks pretty good, which is going to be the same kind of base building, base destruction mechanic. I guess the thing that worries me is, especially if
that
it
was
has...
announced forever ago. Does it have, like, a date?
Oh, Alpha invites sign up just started this week.
Interesting.
That was the game I was talking about the other day where I actually had to admit to being quote-unquote press because they specifically said bloggers as well. So I don't know. Like, apparently that's going to happen soonish. But the thing that I don't know with H1Z1, is it going to be landmarkish, or is it just going to be PlanetSide with zombies, or...
I have to confess that zombies always kind of throws me for a loop. And I've been sitting here trying to figure this out. I absolutely love the Fallout games. I love the post-apocalyptic games, but I cannot stand zombie games. Seem like they're so close to each other in concept, but for some reason one just makes me so happy and the other just completely infuriates me.
Well, I think part of it, too, is when you're talking about a Fallout post-apocalyptic genre, you're talking about lots of different things you could encounter. Whereas in a zombie game, you're just talking other zombies. And maybe that's it.
Some games have managed to transcend that, like at least Resident Evil 4, for example.
Yeah.
There are zombies, and then there are other monster-like things.
I think part of it, though, is like in Fallout, like I can sort of... Maybe I can better identify with the villains, and like I can sort of understand why they're doing the terrible things to the world that they are doing. Whereas zombies are just sort of mindless and boring to me.
Well, zombies don't have deep political structures. Like, there's no factions for zombies. There's no Brotherhood of Steel.
Brotherhood of Brains.
I mean, zombies aren't going to, build interesting organizations that kind of mirror our own. So maybe that's it. Like, there's a bunch of different factions in Fallout, and that was what made it interesting to me. And even though I tried to play all of them against each other, it was still interesting that they existed. That's a game I would love to see. I would love to see Fallout Online. And I question if it will ever actually make the light of day.
People question whether Elder Scrolls ever would see an online game.
Bethesda just got the license back like 2 years ago. It might happen eventually.
Well, and it would be nice if it did, especially since, all things considered, Elder Scrolls launch seems to be going extremely well. I mean,
we'll see what the reports are.
I'm still loving it.
I am too.
I'm having a lot of fun.
I need two of me.
I'm 29. What are you, Ray? You're
25.
And Ash,
15 and 20.
You're confused because you have an army of alts.
Only 2 this time.
Hey, Kodra, what are you sitting at right now? You're catching up to me.
Yeah, I think I'm at 25 now with Ray.
You were 26 in our party earlier.
Was I 26 in your party? Okay, I'm 26 then.
He eked ahead of me.
I tell you, I wrote about this a little bit in my blog this morning, but I can't tell you how refreshing it is to go into a dungeon and just absolutely get my ass kicked. And that's what happened last night in Crypt of Hearts or whatever. It was just too brutal for us to keep going, and we tried all sorts of things, and that's pretty refreshing that a game can do that.
So there's definitely a flip side to that, though, because you know what the last game I remember us saying that about was? The Secret World.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like Secret World, at least to some extent, in a couple of places, was an unmitigatable wall that we bashed up against. And this, I think it was literally last night that it was a gearing thing.
So the moment I actually remember us saying that was in the Ankh.
We beat the Ankh the first time.
Did we beat the Ankh
Yes.
the first time?
It took us forever, but we did.
Yeah. Okay.
That boss encounter was tricky as hell, but we beat it that night.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, that was definitely an instance beating us up as we went through it.
But instances were the strong point of that game up until the level cap.
It's true.
So, okay, I feel like instances beating us up was a really good thing as we leveled through the content.
Yes.
And until we cleared all of the elite content, was it elite? Was that what they called it?
Yes.
Okay. It was when we started bashing our heads against nightmare mode that was just, this is a wall we cannot get past with strategery.
Well, the strategery had to be, your builds are wrong, fix them. And that was the point where we were like, nope not interested.
Are you using the right weapons?
And I feel like that was probably going to be mitigatable by a lot of us, except for the fact that our healer did not want to heal the way he had to get through the content.
It wasn't just him. I was equally frustrated.
Yeah, I think I don't know. Like I gave up on the dream of playing melee and just dealt with being pure ranged.
I understand though, like that's always my concern is like, yeah, instances are really difficult and they're really fun. I always worry that when we get to Craglorn,
the veteran instances.
Yeah, it's gonna be like, whoops, you guys aren't the right build. You should probably go fix that.
Yeah, but I feel like,
at least if nothing else, ESO encourages melee to exist.
Yeah,
it does. Well,
very much so.
It's because melee effectively gets a extra button, like the interrupt.
The interrupt button.
Oh my goodness, it's so powerful. But even then, you're having to spend one of your very precious slots for that interrupt.
Doesn't the melee interrupt take stamina?
It takes stamina, but it doesn't go on your bar.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, it's just the default functionality of being melee.
Also, the ranged interrupts will not interrupt everything. It will only interrupt spells.
Yeah.
Well, and as we're finding out, there's a lot of abilities that just simply blocking the ability will stop the ability.
Yeah,
like those charges.
That was really funny when I saw that charge get stopped in the middle.
Now, the only bad thing is he didn't get stunned like those mobs normally do when they...
charge.
But I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of different abilities that can fill the same niche in ESO. That it's not like... I don't feel like there's one right way to build a Dragon Knight or one right way to build a Sorcerer. Or...
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't feel quite the same as it did in TSW, because TSW a lot of times felt like Champions, where at that height in game, here are the abilities that are well tuned, and we tested, and here's the other ones that we just don't really care about, so good luck with those.
Here's some fun abilities to tank with, and here's Escalation.
Oh, Escalation. That was so problematic. So for those not familiar with Escalation, there was the concept of debuffs, and like anyone could only have a single copy of any debuff. And there was a easy to put debuff which reduced the amount of damage a enemy would deal, and then there was another debuff that would increase the amount of damage they would take. and the only reliable way to get that debuff out was escalation, which basically meant anyone who was tanking had to be chaos.
Yeah, which
Interesting.
got really freaking frustrating.
Especially for me, who like to play hammer swords.
Well, and another thing is
Bash,
that you
bash.
really needed Purge so bad, and someone had to give up something to keep Purge up. And I guess,
Purge.
I don't know, the only reliable way to get that was pretty much Elemental, wasn't it? Yeah.
The only reliable way was Elemental. There were some less reliable ways you could... Yeah.
Like, I was stubborn and got through Gatekeeper with, shotgun and swords, but I want to say my Purge was a 33% chance, so a lot of
picked
my
up an
deaths,
unreliable assault rifle one, but it didn't really ever do us any good.
I don't know. Like, I guess just the way that the dungeons feel already, I have hope for the in-game dungeons. I mean, because it feels like they're making it harder by better tactics and not necessarily making it harder by
Numbers.
making it cheaper. Like,
Yeah.
what we encountered in Crypt of Hearts was literally, we were taking too much damage. We were taking more damage than could be healed. And it was because we were low level. And I feel like I've gotten 2 levels since then. Tam has gotten 2 levels since then. So 3 levels since then. So I think that would go away. I mean,
Crazy.
but we actually were making progress even though we were under-geared and under-leveled for it. So it was just refreshing to see an encounter that we couldn't out-skill. Because so many of these games that we play, we can out-tactic the encounter, even though we're not geared enough for it. Like, I feel like there were several cases in Final Fantasy XIV where we out-tactic the encounter, even though our gear wasn't really what it should have been. Although I think that was probably another game that we felt like the dungeons were enjoyably hard in.
Wow.
Yeah, that game was the dungeons were weird for me. They were ultimately like the only thing you could really do at the end of the game, and so they kind of got samey pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Well, as being our token dragoon, you got punished a lot. I mean, there was a lot of stuff that was super punishing to melee in that game.
I guess I didn't notice it as much because there are so many other games that are way more punishing.
He was too
That's
busy
true.
looking awesome.
Yeah.
My biggest problem with Dragoon was the fact that until they patched it, you rooted yourself to do damage.
Oh, yeah. And if you rooted yourself in an AoE, you took the damage.
It was really bad.
That was poor decision making.
And then there was the whole jumping back into AoEs, which was frustrating. I don't know, like, we never did anything other than regular hard modes for the... How much did we... Okay, we got a free. Did we ever get...
We never did Siren of Titan.
No, we never did.
Or Gerudo of Titan.
Yeah,
Siren was the boss of Pharaoh Sirius.
A free was frustrating.
No, I
Not
liked
too
it.
bad,
okay.
but I tanked it every time, so I can't say what it was like to DPS.
It was... As a bard, it wasn't too bad, but there was a lot of stuff going on.
Poor Warren. He died every single fight. Boss did not like him.
Warren maybe pushes the limit a little bit sometimes, because he kind of likes to die. Like, there was a point last night in Crypt of Hearts where we were all trying to get behind a pillar, and he was just pouring out the DPS on the boss, completely oblivious to the fact that stuff was about to explode. So yeah, I think he likes to kill things a little too much. Like, and that's something coming from me, because I'm pretty homicidal in these games.
We learn from the best.
I don't know. I'm looking forward to Craglorn. I want to see it. And I'm really hoping it's going to be like the Plains in EverQuest. And I know none of you guys really had experience with those, but they were just like these. There were these huge, really tough, persistent public dungeons where there were tons of bosses in them, and you could go in there and hunt for hours. And what was cool about them was there were like entire sets of gear that came from there. And
So I've heard stories of Plane of Fear and Plane of Hate. Is that what you're talking about?
Plane of Fear and Plane of Hate. Plane of Fear was far nastier than Plane of Hate. Plane of Hate at least zoned you into a relative safe spot. Plane of Fear, you pretty much had to have a break team. that would zone in and feign death and then wait for the healers to zone in and stand up the second the whole healers came in and start fighting. And I'm hoping, I don't think anybody wants to go back to that, but once the zone was broken, it was a pretty cool, controllable place to just go run around as a group.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm hoping out of Craglorn, is that it's just this always-on group experience that you can go run around in whenever you want.
So what I'm most excited for is the trials.
Trials?
Yeah, the trials. So trials are going to be sort of their pseudo-raid content. It's designed for 12 people.
Oh, right.
And so what it reminds me of is kind of like the Final Fantasy XIV dungeons. And what I really loved about Final Fantasy XIV was there were ways you could actually fail the dungeon. In 14, it was based on how much time you spent. In Craglorn, the trials are going to be based on how many deaths your party sustains.
Weird.
So after a certain number of deaths, you failed the instance and you have to do it again. And I don't know if there's going to be timers or what on them. But there's also, so that's sort of, for learning it, you have to understand there's a hard stop failure point where you have to get kicked out. But then once you've managed to get it to farm, like get that status, you'll be still able to go in and do stuff because there's going to be the concept of a leaderboard, which basically says if you can do this super fast without sustaining any deaths, then you're going to get better rewards and you'll be put on the leaderboard.
Yeah, and I think just being on the leaderboard somewhere qualifies everybody that got put on some amount of reward. If I remember correctly, there's like some kind of, at the end of whatever the period of the leaderboard is, there's some kind of reward that goes out for being on the leaderboard, I think. Maybe I'm smoking crack, but I swear there was something like that talked about.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact reward structure around the leaderboard or not.
That was one of the things I did like about 14 was there was a fixed end point for the dungeon. Like, there was only so much beating your head against the wall that you could do because you ran out of time. And it was frustrating, and it also meant a lot of times that we'd only get like half the bosses in a dungeon our first time in. But it was cool knowing that no matter how hard it was, there was a fixed end to the night.
Yup.
Yeah.
And I think the challenge or the trials are going to be a lot like that. But it sounds like there's a lot more stuff to do in Craglorn other than just the trial.
Yes. I was going to say Eternity Vault sure could have used a timer like that.
Eternity Vault could have used a lot of things. Let's not get me started on Eternity Vault.
It makes me glad I did not really participate in the raiding in Tor.
Karaga's Palace was pretty good.
What was the
Let's
end
not
boss
talk
on
about
that?
the raiding in SWTOR. It was Karaga, a hut in a big giant machine.
Okay, yeah. Like, for some reason I thought there was something to do with the Rancor, or was that one of the later ones that they came
At
out
was.
with?
launch, Karaga's Palace was not in, and the Rancor was the only part of it.
Okay.
But before I even hit 50, it got patched in.
And so, SWTOR, I don't know. I keep having the desire to go back every now and then I will boot it up and see how horribly broken their cash shop model is and say nope. I mean, I'm not anti-cash shop by any stretch of the imagination, and I've played plenty of games with cash shops, but that one has always seemed to be the worst possible version of a cash shop.
It's a very bitter cash shop.
Well, so EQ2, when it went free to play, their cash shop was pretty punitive, but over time they've made it to where it's pretty open. I mean, it's a lot like Rifts is now, where you just go in and play, and if you want something, you get it off the cash shop. But there's no feeling of a need to play it. But Tor and everything has a price associated with it, like your hot bars or your extra bank tabs or your extra professions.
Back off of that hotbar thing.
I don't know, but like my characters still don't. Like when I log into one of the characters that is not fully unlocked, it still only has a fixed number of hotbars, I think. Because I've tried to play my characters underneath the cash shop regime, and it just, I don't know, it's frustrating, especially the whole, I think you only get one trade skill.
Yeah.
I don't know. What are you guys' general take on cash shops?
I like Rifts, and it was also very bad for me because they got triple digits worth of money out of my wallet, mostly because of the dimensions. But I think they add, I don't know, a dimension to the game. You can get something to make yourself feel better, look prettier or whatever.
So my favorite cash shops are DDO and the Secret World, because what I'm buying from them is new content.
Yeah, I really think that the TSW model has worked well of having comic book episodic-like content available. But that seems to be the minority from cash shops, is that here's an episode that you can play through. Because really, I guess DDO and to some extent Lotro and TSW have been the only ones that I've known that have had these little mini episodes of content that you can unlock. You guys think of anything else that's done that?
No, that's all I can think of.
I don't know. I wouldn't mind the whole cash shopification if it meant more content, because that always seems to be the thing that's missing, is that when they switch these games over to free to play, usually the forward momentum with the content kind of dies. And I mean, I know Rifts is working on another expansion, but it feels like they're well past the year that it took for them to roll out Storm Legion, and I don't know, it feels like that the fact that they're doing a lot of free-to-play cosmetic stuff has stymied the forward momentum on actual real content. And, I mean, I don't know, they've released dungeon content, but I don't necessarily feel like that's content, per se. It is, but it is.
I didn't really find anything special about Rift's Dungeons. It felt just like every other game that I played.
I don't know. Fundamentally, I just don't like that generally when people add in content to a game, it's all at the top end. I'd like to see it widen the base a bit more, rather than just stick it in at the top. I mean, I realize that's where a lot of the players are, is they're up at the top, but that's what I like about the Secret Worlds content, is it can be pretty much completed at almost any level. It's not necessarily tied to the high end, but it's a really good story for you to play through.
Or a really creepy story.
Yeah. I do
about Tyler Freeborn.
Yeah.
I feel like they maybe need to stop making alternate weapons, because it seems like every time they roll out one of these expansions, or the content packs, they add in a brand new weapon to level.
The other kind of cash shop that exists is the MOBA cash shop and the free to play game cash shop. So when I think of them, the first one that actually ever hooked me in was Tribes Ascend. And that cash shop, I had no problem paying into it because it was how I was able to quickly unlock some of the cool classes I really enjoyed.
I disliked that they locked some of the classes that I actually wanted to play away, like, immediately.
So was there no path to unlock those, or?
There was. You could play the classes you didn't like to unlock the classes you did.
So kind of the Risk of Rain thing, where you have to beat it.
Yeah, kind of like that.
I'm pretty sure I put some of Riot employees' children through college by now.
To
a certain extent, that's what LoL is too, really.
Yeah.
But with 10 champs each free week, hopefully you can find someone you like.
Well, and really, I don't know. I think that what Riot has done has kind of trailblazed that genre with, here's some free stuff, and we rotate the free stuff, and just by playing it casually every couple weeks, you can see a wide rotation of the champions.
Yeah.
If you wait long enough, it's going to go on free.
But for those of us that can't wait.
It is true. Their new champions go on free week 3 weeks after release every single time. So you do get a chance to see new stuff.
And man, do they roll out free champions pretty quick, or new champions pretty quickly.
They've actually
I hear it's slowed down a bit.
Yeah.
At only 6 last year, that's much slower than the previous years by a pretty big number.
Well, last year was like really the first year I had ever played, so I didn't know
Yeah.
how fast they had rolled out the other champions.
The last year was when I got actually into it.
I saw a bunch of Reddit posts where they were talking about how Riot claimed they were going to do like one champion every month or one champion every other month, and how I think it was at least one a month, and they'd really fallen short of that promise. And Riot employees are always like, just wait, watch all this other stuff that we're putting together. And I think they've been trying to focus on the different game modes that they've been introducing.
Ultra Rapid Fire mode.
I still haven't gotten to play it.
Shoot, it's going away on Tuesday.
I know.
I think that's really going to be the place that Heroes of the Storm is going to gain ground over League. Is
multiple maps.
The maps are fun. Like, they're really fun. Whereas, what do you have in League? You have Summoner's Rift that everyone plays.
I don't really play it. I'm an ARAM-aholic.
Well, ARAM is really cool, but it's a totally different game. It's not, I don't know, it doesn't feel equivalent to Summoner's Rift.
No, it's not.
Yeah, Heroes of the Storm has multiple maps with the 5v5 laning phase, so on and so forth.
Yeah,
with different secondary objectives, some of which are really interesting.
Like, my favorite is the mines. I love the mines.
I haven't gotten to play on that one yet.
Oh, you haven't got... Okay, so for anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, there's a map where every so often these mines open up, and there's undead in the mines. And it forces you to split your team however you decide you can sacrifice. And it basically starts this metagame of go down into the mines and collect bones from the undead. And then whenever you take out the champion, the number of bones that you have collected for your team determines how strong your skeletal golem is. And this skeletal golem summons up and goes and basically suicides down one of the lanes. And I forget, I think the left side of the map goes down the top lane and the right side goes down the bottom lane. And there's a large disparity, and whoever wins the skull phase is going to take out some significant stuff with their golem. It'll smash through a gate. It'll smash through, a building. So you have to determine how much of your laning phase you can sacrifice to go collect your skulls to power up your golem, because if you send everyone down into the mines, bam, your lanes are now unprotected, and the person who didn't send them down into the mines can go wreak havoc on your gates and your towers and whatever. So it's just an interesting mechanic, and I tend to go down into the mines, and I just wreck face down there. But if you run into the opponents down in the mines, it's hard because you're fighting skeletons and your opponents at the same time.
That's interesting. I'm kind of curious how it's going to actually play out. If the goal is to try and catch your opponents in transition, get the mines while they are out of lane.
I think that's going to be basically what happens. Is people will treat the mines as though they were the jungle, essentially, for that game. But each one of them has a mechanic like that. Like, there's the pirate match where every so often chests spawn on the docks and you have to fight. You have to damage these chests, and both people can be banging on the chests at the same time. And then you take the doubloons and pay off these NPC pirates to essentially do an aerial strike on a bombardment on the enemy team. And whoever gets to whatever the amount of gold is first is who gets the strike for their team.
I want a key so bad.
I wish they would give friend keys. I think it's awesome. I like it a lot better than League, but mostly because I don't like last hitting. I hate that mechanic. And I like the whole... I'm bad at item build as well, so it works really well for me since there's no
there are things I like about it, and there are things
build.
I don't.
Item build makes me memorize items, and I don't want to have to memorize items.
I don't have a problem with knowing what a lot of the items in the game do, even most of the less common ones.
Executioner's
You're really good at memorizing those kinds of facts, though. I am not. I can't remember the names of anything.
Executioner's Culling is an AD item that inflicts grievous wounds.
Yep.
Not really worth buying on anybody. Ever.
Wensu's Rage Blade?
Except ARAM.
Item that gives you stacking AP and AD. Might be AP and AS?
No, it's an AD item.
Wensu's Rage Blade? It's a hybrid item.
The active gives you movement speed?
Yeah. See, there's a reason why I always start off with the Doran's items. Because I don't have to think.
I'm thinking Ghost Blade.
I don't have to think. I would buy nothing but Doran's if I didn't think that was probably a lousy idea.
Well,
Turns out I was right the second time. It's AP and AS per stack.
Yeah, I was thinking Ghostblade, which is a different word with a U in it.
I feel like Heroes of the Storm has the only real shot of making traction, whereas all the rest of these MOBAs don't really.
What, you don't have any faith in Strife?
Which one is Strife? Okay, because there's Strife and Smite and quite frankly, I get them all confused. Like they're too close to the same name.
Strife is another MOBA by the same company as Heroes of New Earth, which is essentially dying at this point.
Yeah.
So they're trying again with a more beginner-friendly MOBA. I have not played it.
Well, the other one, like Dawngate, is EA is pushing.
That's
that one
opening
hard.
up now, I think, in open beta. They actually don't have a 3-lane map, which is the only different thing that they're doing, really.
I think they've simplified a lot of stuff as well, haven't they? Like it's more of a...
Yes, sort of.
I think it's kind of got the same build structure as Heroes, or am I just...
it's
no, it's
you still have
items as
items
well?
like League, but they do different things.
Okay. But it doesn't have last hitting, though, does it?
It does. You get an increased amount of gold for the last hit, and also, I think, you get some amount of gold for being near a minion that dies, but increased amount of gold for getting the last hit on it. So it's not you get nothing unless you hit it, but...
That's the piece that... I mean, really, of anything else, that's the thing I like about Heroes is I like that the team progresses together instead of one player progresses over a lot of other players.
I think that's interesting, and it has benefits and drawbacks.
Doublelift doesn't like it.
I just feel like
Ignoring that.
League tends to empower prima donnas,
Yeah.
and I like games that focus on team play. I mean, I'm not a Call of Duty player, but I was a enemy territory player where that game is entirely about the team and completing objectives as a team, and it doesn't really matter what your individual stats are. But it's just the kind of person I am. I don't care if we've got one person that really shines on a team.
So the thing about League is that as a team, you are all trying to win, but sometimes that means as a team, your goal is to get a player fed.
Well, okay, but that's in team league play. But for the most part, we're stuck in
Solo queue?
pugging.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Heroes is a better game for pugging, just by the way that it's built. It's more equitable for pug players.
I think I've often joked that removing chat might be a killer feature in MOBAs for me.
It is. I mean, it really is a nice thing. There's no more... I don't know. I mean, people just seem to get along
You can ping your team, but you can't actually chat with them.
Yeah, I mean, it's... The funny thing about that is, though, is Hearthstone has the same thing going on, but people have figured out a way to be super passive-aggressive with the few statements that you can make.
Aww.
In what game?
Hearthstone.
Hearthstone.
Yes, I know some of those passive aggressive.
Like, okay, so if you play an ability or you take too long, I've had people sit there and spam, I'm sorry. So yeah, I mean, they could be just as annoying and passive-aggressive, but there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't be out and out offensive without
you
the
can't
chat
wish
box.
cancer on people's family members.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that, I mean, honestly, the funny thing is I was talking to some friends, and you know the child MMOs that don't have chat boxes,
Like Lego.
like Free Realms and Lego and
Do the 101s have chat boxes?
They do, but you can't type in them if you have a child account,
Oh.
except for select phrases.
right. But you build a statement out of the phrase generator, essentially.
Yes.
Well, what I've
You
heard
can
is apparently
stretch the phrase generator quite a bit in at least Wizard 101.
apparently there's like slang that people develop in those, like they will call people beaches, or they will call people. So they've basically created a pidgin language for cursing someone
For
out.
cursing in a
Yeah.
children's MMO.
Yeah.
Mother trucker.
So I'm sure even adding in that kind of canned chat, people would come up with a way to be dicks. just like they have with Hearthstone.
One of the things I really like about Heroes of the Storm, though, is that a lot of things are enabled by their team progression model. Like Abathur. Abathur couldn't exist in League.
No. You couldn't have that quote-unquote pure supporty character that can't really sort of exist on his own.
What is Abathur?
Abathur casts an ability on a teammate, and he gets a hat. And Abathur can use some abilities from this teammate and support this person. He himself is probably still in base.
Yeah.
What?
So he basically rides along with the player. So it's like, it's hard to explain. It's like you become a buff on another player.
Yeah.
And that buff can use specific things to make that player a bigger badass. So
Weird.
So you literally cast it while you're in base, because Abathur is attackable, but he
can't fight back.
He can't fight back because he's off being someone's buff. I mean, it's like Abathur's that way. Murky is to some extent that way. That couldn't exist in another MMO unless you had your team helping you out with it. So it's almost like a different kind of carry, but it's like a pure support
It's like
kind of carry.
legitimizing Spawn Karthus.
Yeah.
Well, and there's another one, I forget. I don't know if she's in the game yet or not, but it's another Zerg that creates a Nidus tunnel network. And she
was
can
announced at PAX, not in game yet.
She can zip around the map. So you basically, she's super weak by herself, but she can be used to get to the docks and get that chest, or get to the middle and spawn the Dragon Knight. And for those who don't know what that one is, it's a map type where there's 4 shrines on the map. If your team controls all 4 shrines, you can send a player to the middle of the map, and they'll become the Dragon Knight, which is this insane tower diving monstrosity.
Something like 14,000 HP in a game where most people have 2 or 3.
It's insane. Like, I mean, you just go eat a tower, and there's nothing the other team can really do about it.
And if they try, you can actually punt them like halfway across the map.
Yeah. So
like gnomes.
So this character is, I forget what the name is, but it's a Zergling, and it can get to the dragon the second you've grabbed those shrines, and then it becomes really formidable because it's the Dragon Knight. It inherits the health and abilities of the Dragon Knight. So they've created a lot of really interesting characters, and the ones that I've played, it feels like they have a more round package, that they're not just doing this one thing. Like, Raynor is a ranged, but he's also kind of sort of tanky at the same time, and he has an ability that like buffs everything around him.
He's a little weird.
He's really dependent upon having minions around him that he can buff with his ability to basically distract from them hitting him.
Yeah, as far as range go, he's not that hot by himself.
But he does have that one ability that has a pushback, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, his only actual range damage ability has a pushback on it.
Yeah, it's like a skill shot, and it's got like a shotgun-like pushback. Anyway, it's a fun game, and I wish they had buddy keys so we could all get in and play it. But I still think that's the only MOBA that really has a shot in hell of pulling away market share from
the largest game in the world.
League and Dota 2. I mean, Dota 2 kind of has its own very specific market.
I don't think anything is going to pull players away from Dota 2. It would have to, be Dota 3.
Honestly, what I feel like Heroes is Blizzard doing what they've done for every other game. They've made it simpler. They've lowered the barrier of entry for getting into the MOBA market. Because the whole series of either or choices to build your character really makes the gameplay friendlier, I think.
Those expand a bit once you level up, don't they?
Once you hit 8, you get upwards to 5 per ding, to where you have 5 different choices per level. And some of them are really specific, like they're very specialty. So I think that's at the point at which it gets more nuanced, but I still find the original 2 the easiest.
What are you talking about?
Instead of items,
Heroes.
When you level up in Heroes, you get a choice of talents, and generally these are passive things that either improve one of your abilities or improve your stats or make you more effective versus certain targets or something. I think at level 10, you get a choice of 2 abilities, which are your ultimates.
Yeah, you get
Every character, I think except Abathur, has 2.
Well,
You can pick one.
And some of the once you hit the level 8 threshold when you unlock the other ones, it actually opens up other abilities. So you won't just have QWER, you'll have like F or T and those are very specific to the individual players.
Yeah, you can get some weird Dota-like abilities going on eventually.
I've never actually
That was
played
one of
Dota.
the things LoL did that I kind of like, actually, compared to Dota.
Was simplified to
confuses
where
me.
you only have a certain number of abilities.
You always have QWER and a passive. Though on some League Champs, some of those are passives.
Well,
Sometimes they have 2 abilities per button.
And then they have then there's the ones like Jace where they have 2 completely different sets of abilities,
Yeah.
depending on one.
Yeah.
How many of those are there? I know there's Aatrox is kind of that way, isn't he?
No.
No. Jace, Elise, Karma, Needly.
Karma doesn't have a second ability set either.
Oh, yeah, that's right. She just starts with her ult.
Jace, Needly, and Elise all have a completely second set of abilities that they can switch into.
Transformations.
As far as I know, those are the only 3.
That's all I can think of.
Well, at this point, we have been going on for almost an hour.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, we've been going on for about 57 minutes right now on the timer. So I'm thinking this might be a good place to actually break it off for this first podcast.
Seems fair.
All right.
We kind of verbally faffed about for a while, and hopefully some of it was interesting. We'll figure out the format for certain. For those who don't know, what we've done is basically we have a Google Doc that we throw ideas in, and really we didn't even scratch the surface of what all is in here. We kind of...
About some of them, kind of, maybe.
A couple of them we touched on, but yeah, we kind of went off on our own, and that's kind of what I would hope would happen is that, once we did the little introduction around, we would go off in a direction and just go there, but...
we didn't even talk about elves at all.
No. and why Kodra is wrong for liking elves. But that can be a discussion for another time.
You guys are all elf haters.
We are
I'm
elf
not an
haters.
elf hater.
And that's okay.
I'm not an elf hater.
Okay, Ray isn't
I think
an
it's
elf
2 on
hater.
2.
Yeah, Ray isn't an elf hater, but I am most definitely an elf hater. But that could be a whole other show, why we hate elves. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, and hopefully this doesn't suck.
Yay!
Hi, folks.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks for
Good night.
listening.
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 Night.
Thanks for
Good night.
listening.